Hello, my name is John Gillett and I'm a volunteer speaker for Open Doors UK and Ireland. I live in Ipswich with my wife Dawn and we have 3 adult children who live in various parts of the country. We also have a grandchild who's just over a year old. At the moment, as like many people, we're communicating with our family over WhatsApp and Zoom and various other technological combinations, which I'm learning more and more about during this lockdown period. I work part-time as a mental health nurse with parish nursing, and I've been doing that for about 4 years since retiring from a full-time job in my local NHS trust. I also trained to be a reader following my retirement, and so I'm able to speak and to lead and to minister in my local church. Thank you so much for inviting me to share with you about the work of Open Doors. It's been an important part of my life. I'm just sorry that I can't be with you in person to do this. I first came aware of Open Doors when, as a young Christian in my early 20s, somebody lent me the book by the founder of Open Doors, Brother Andrew. And this book is called God's Smuggler. Now, I was brought up in a small rural village in Suffolk, and I attended a fairly small church in another rural town. And as I read God's Smuggler, I was amazed at the stories that I was reading. The stories of Brother Andrew smuggling Bibles into countries beyond the Iron Curtain. Stories of how the guards' eyes who were searching his blue Volkswagen seemed to be closed to all the Bibles that were clearly visible in the suitcases that they were opening. I couldn't get over how exciting Christianity is. And as the years went by, I used to receive literature from Open Doors and pray for our brothers and sisters and read about what was happening in places where Christians were being persecuted. And then about 7 years ago, I attended an Open Doors celebration. And at that celebration, I really felt challenged by God that perhaps there was more that I could be doing to support our brothers and sisters. It was one of those times when I tried to resist what God was clearly saying to me. One of the roles in Open Doors was as a volunteer speaker, and they were talking about that. And I thought, well, I do some speaking and preaching in church. Maybe that's something I could do on behalf of Open Doors. But I sort of resisted for a while. I thought of various reasons why it wouldn't be practical. I was too busy. I was busy with work at the time and various other reasons that perhaps I shouldn't do it. But in the end, God got me and I gave in. That has been one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. I've had the opportunity since then to speak in various places. This followed an application process and an interview, doing some online training, and then having a mentor who helped me in the first couple of meetings which I was involved in. And since that time, I've been in various parts of East Anglia to various churches or other places to speak on behalf of our persecuted brothers and sisters, and it has been a real joy and a privilege to do that. In 2017, I was able to go on an Open Doors speakers trip to Egypt, and then last year I went with Open Doors to Vietnam. Those trips made a great impression on me. It was such a privilege and so humbling to meet with our persecuted brothers and sisters face to face. I think those trips changed me inside, and I do hope that they've helped me to communicate better the needs, the joys and the sorrows, the triumphs and battles of our persecuted brothers and sisters. You know, I'm sure I've learnt so much more from engaging with the persecuted church than I've given. It's been a real challenge to think about what's important in my life. Where do I put Jesus in the list, so to speak, of my priorities? Is he number one? Would I be willing to give up everything for him, as our brothers and sisters in many places do, even to the point of giving up their lives? A real challenge, and yet really encouraging also. Many of the stories that we hear from the persecuted church can be absolutely heartbreaking, and yet many of them are heartwarming. As we hear about the way that God provides, the way that he uses Open Doors partners to reach into the most difficult parts of the world, to go to places where to be a Christian is a real risk to your life, and yet Open Doors are able to support people. They're able to support pastors, they're able to support people practically with aid and setting up micro businesses. The many ways in which God blesses his church through engaging with those who are most vulnerable. I would encourage you to engage more with our persecuted brothers and sisters. Open Doors produces a wide range of resources to help us to do that. One of the things they produce is a magazine which comes out about bi-monthly, which tells us up-to-date news of what is happening within the persecuted church, and they have news about what's happening on the front line, and this edition has news of what's happening during the COVID-19 outbreak. They also produce a prayer DVD, and I find this is a great way of praying for our persecuted brothers and sisters. There's various stories here, some told by the people themselves, and it just inspires you to pray and gives you something to sort of almost hook your prayers onto. One of the things that Open Doors produces each year is the World Watch List, and this is a list of 50 countries in the world where it is most difficult to be a Christian. And these range from North Korea at number 1 to Niger at number 50. And of course there's 48 other countries in between that. Part of that World Watch List resources is a map which shows you where those 50 countries are in the world. And I often say to people, you know, if there's one thing you can learn from this map, if nothing else, it's how to score some points, how to get some pointless answers on that quiz program, Pointless, because often they're asking about, you know, what countries have a Stan in their name and that sort of thing. If that's your starting point, start there, because I'm sure then God will inspire you to look further. Open Doors also produce resources for youth and for children, and these are a couple of the children's resources, a comic and a DVD, and they tell the story of how Open Doors began and of Brother Andrew's adventures right at the beginning and founding of the ministry. So I'd encourage you to go to www.opendoorsuk.org, and there you'll find lots of other resources and ways to connect with our persecuted brothers and sisters. So I hope you'll find what I've written for your service sheet on Pentecost Sunday helpful, and I do hope that I'll be able to come and see you in person at some point. If I do manage to do that, I think I'll probably have less hair on the top here and also less hair here. I must confess this beard isn't my usual look, it's my lockdown laziness look. But I guess, we all manage the challenge in different ways, don't we? So thank you again so much for listening and watching. And I do pray that God will bless you and your fellowship and the ones that you love.